Hello and welcome back to the Chronically Healthy Life show. I am so excited to introduce our guest today. Susan Haworth holds a bachelor's degree in psychology, 2 master's degrees, and postmaster's credentials in counseling. She has provided counseling, coaching, and training to individuals, families, and executives for over 4 decades. Susan is the owner of Cambios Coaching and Consulting. She specializes in providing individual and couples counseling and coaching for step parents. Ooh, good topic. Susan's monthly advice column, The Stepmom Whisperer, appears in Stepmom magazine. She has been featured in the Wall Street Journal and on national and international radio, podcast, and television programs. Her book, A Change Would Do You Good, Proven Strategies for Creating the Life You Want, which came out January of 2022, is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and through independent booksellers nationwide. She is also the author of the forthcoming book, The Stepmom Whisperer. She and her family live in Northern California. Welcome, Susan. I'm so happy to have you here today.
Thank you, Kristy. It's great to be with you. Thanks.
Thank you. Well, I'm very intrigued by our topic of step families today because I think, generally speaking, there are probably more step families now than nuclear families. So let's jump right in.
Great.
So I know everybody knows the divorce rate for second marriages with children remains very high. Yes. So why do you think that is?
Yeah, it hasn't budged much, Kristy, from about 70%. And for first marriages, it's still around 50%. Sometimes it goes a little lower, but it remains very high for second marriages and third marriages with children. There are so many stressors. Well, first of all, there are a lot of stressors just living with somebody else, right? Just marriage in general. Okay. Then you add children. They come all at once. They come fully formed, and they're not your own. You probably have to co-parent because about 90% of step families are formed because of divorce, about 10% death. So likely you have to co-parent, which is never easy. So those stressors of dealing with children who aren't your own, of dealing with another household, they compound the existing stressors of just forming a new union.
Oh, absolutely. Marriage and marriage is stressful enough. Marriage is in the top 3 on the stress threshold. Marriage, divorce, and death of a loved one are the 3 top, I think. Yeah. Or marriage, divorce. No, I'm wrong. Marriage and divorce are on the same level. And then moving. So a lot of times
changing jobs, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And then you're adding children, which children are stressful anyway. Just because you're responsible for a little human.
Exactly. And you think about this, Kristy, when you have biological children, usually in a first marriage, a first union, you have some time to work out co-parenting with your spouse, to how you're going to parent. You have some binding times without the kids, but not so in a second marriage. You're immediately thrown in, and the kids appear all at once, not one at a time, which is true for first families. So it's and you don't have time to work out your systems.
No, and your systems are organically going to be different because you're a different person than in our case, their mom, but their dad too, and it could cause friction, like, wait, you don't do things the right way because my mom does it different.
Exactly. And it usually does cause friction. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's a toughie.
Sometimes people will say to me, well, isn't it like adoption? And I say, actually, it is nothing like adoption. The only common denominator is that at least one parent is not the biological parent. But adoption, you don't, by definition, you don't co-parent in adoption.
Mm.
And you usually have the children very young. Whereas in step families, you can get them all over the place. You teenagers, adults, so it's not just little babies that you have to parent, but you have to, as I said, parent fully formed human beings.
Yes. And when you say co-parent, you're meaning the two biological parents that have now formed different families having to co-parent with their step and with their natural parent, right? All that co-parenting going on.
Exactly. And then the other stressor is that we have a lot of blurry boundaries with step families. So in first families, we do afford them autonomy and privacy. People usually do that. I mean, we may have, in-laws who are troublesome, but for the most part, we're left alone. Well, that is not true for step families. What is very common for step families is for the exes to just come into the house uninvited. They're picking up children, they're dropping off children. I know you're looking like this, but it is so common, Kristy. So many people talk about their spouse's ex having a key to their house and coming in to retrieve soccer shoes or whatever, but they just come in uninvited. This does not happen with first families.
Definitely not. That would be very disruptive.
It is.
Yes.
So the privacy isn't there for second families, and the boundaries, the kids are confused. They have what we call boundary ambiguity. So they don't know who their allegiances are to, and mostly it's to their biological parent, of course. So for them, reporting back what they've seen and heard in the other family is like, of course I should do that. My mom should know what my stepmom is doing. So again, that is not an issue with first families, but it is with second families. A lot of my clients have said, I feel like I'm living with spies. And you're under surveillance in your own home.
I can relate to that from all my years as a teacher.
Yeah.
And then there were those kids that would, always be saying, "Oh, the teacher said I didn't have to do this." And then I get this angry note, and it's like, I didn't say that. And it's listed in the homework, and it's all over the internet, and just take a look, and it's all there. And maybe kind of remember, like, there are some kids that just do that.
Absolutely. And I think the step, the children of divorce, there's trauma involved, and they're not sure, how they should feel about, let's say, their new stepmother. And so, reporting back about what is going on seems like that's their job. So, yeah.
Well, I would think that there would be certain situations with an extremely dysfunctional original parent where there's a divorce and then there's a new step parent, whether it's male or female, who is not dysfunctional. That, I mean, I've seen it go both ways, where the kid either wants to stay with the dysfunctional parent or they want to get away and go. They like the step parent better because they're not, making them crazy all the time. Have you ever dealt with something like that?
Yeah, and that's rare. So the family loyalty issue is really big for most children of divorce. And so even though their mom may be, dysfunctional or not parent well or whatever, they still feel like it's their mom and they have to be loyal to her. So that's what we see a little bit more often. And that makes it really hard for the new parent to form a partnership and to feel that one of the conditions, especially stepmoms, feel like perennial outsiders. There's just no room for them in the system. And although I deal with divorced dads, I have a few clients who are divorced dads. I don't have clients who are just stepdads. And there is a reason for that. So stepmoms, women in our society and many societies were groomed as caregivers, caretakers, we're groomed as nurturers, we're given a lot of responsibility in families. We put those expectations on ourselves that we're going to be helping this family in every way possible. I mean, still to this day, we can have full-time jobs, but we're still doing the lion's share of the household, right? That has not changed as much as we'd hoped it would. So there are a lot of expectations on women. We put a lot of expectations on ourselves, not so for men. So for stepdads, if they're breathing in and out, if they're showing up occasionally, we're good. We just don't have a lot of expectations for them. We don't care if they interact with our kids. That's it. So they're given a big pass. Now, I do know that some stepdads struggle. I mean, that is true. I'm speaking in general terms here. Yeah. So some stepdads struggle, but not to the extent that stepmoms do. We see this in the depression and anxiety that's reported among stepmoms. Women have a higher rate of depression and anxiety than men do to start with. But as a subcategory, stepmoms have among the highest rate of anxiety and depression. It just kind of hits us where it hurts, our self-esteem.
Oh, definitely. I could see that I can see that. Yeah.
Absolutely.
There's that, the whole myth of the evil stepmother. I think it's a ridiculous myth, but let's move into that, because you're telling us some things about stepmoms that people I've never thought about, even though I was a stepmom at one point in my life. This is resonating with me because it's making me feel validated.
Oh, good.
What I went through.
I was hoping it wasn't making you feel bad, so it's making you feel validated. Yes. Yeah. The truth is, when I became a stepmom 28 years ago, I had considered myself a pretty successful person up until that point. And then it's like I could do nothing right. It's, I mean, my stepkids hated my cooking, it's just everything. So I started feeling like I am not equipped to do this. I am not good enough. That is for sure. And it is, as you said, it's fueled by some of the myths that we have incorporated. Disney did us no service. And so we kind of go overboard. We don't want to be the evil stepmom. So then we become, okay, I'll do everything for you. I'll cook, I'll clean, I'll clean out the fireplace. I'll do everything. I'll prepare all your meals. I'll do your laundry, even though you're 21. So we overfunction. That's the word that I use to try to right the wrong that we saw in Disney and grim fairy tales. I mean, it goes way back. And then we had those crazy television shows. I grew up with the Brady Bunch. So when I became a stepmom, all of my problems were going to be solved in 30 minutes or less.
Well,
And we were going to have such a good time,
oh,
you know,
yes, yes,
and our problems were going to be so hilarious.
yes.
Well, that's not exactly the way it went. And that isn't how it goes for most stepmoms.
No, because most stepmoms have a job. Carol Brady did not have a job. And she had a housekeeper that took care of all that stuff. And we don't usually have housekeepers. We have to do it all ourselves.
Exactly. So what happened? Where did I go wrong? Yeah. So we come to, and both parties, we come to our step family with a lot of fantasies and unrealistic expectations on both sides. And we don't talk about them, those fantasies and those expectations. And that's what gets us into trouble from day one.
Isn't that always true, though? I mean, the lack of communication can be at the root of so many things that, and I'm talking genuine communication. In my case, I was married to a horrible narcissist, and their communication didn't exist because it was the narcissist game of blame and deny, lie and deny, and all that. So there was no my attempts at communication were met with really nasty comments like, don't make me choose between you and the kids. And I'm like,
yeah.
I'm not saying anything. I'm telling you, your kids this is what is happening. The school is calling me. This is happening. You're their dad. And so
Exactly.
that's a rough one.
What you just said, Kristy, I hear all the time is that the dads feel like they have to choose between their children and their new partner, which is not the case. So, the divorced dads are very confused people. I mean, they tend to trying to make everybody happy and making nobody happy, right? So they've got a new partner and then they've got an ex. And they're trying to make the ex happy. Why? I don't know. They give her a lot more power than she warrants, than she deserves, but they're trying to make her happy. And then they've got that dad guilt, that divorced dad guilt. And so that means that they're not going to discipline their kids. We call them Disney dads.
Yes.
But there are also Disney parents. There are plenty of women who overindulge their kids too. But then we have to live, if we're stepmoms, we have to live with children who are, spoiled and who are not disciplined. How much fun is that? It's no fun. So those are all the complexities. But yes, communication, if you don't have that, it's hard for a relationship to survive.
Oh, definitely. It is.
But Kristy, I've been on a mission here. So my mission is to untangle the web between the bio mom and the stepmom, because it shouldn't be. I hear a lot how, oh my God, the ex is such a crazy woman and she blah 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 blah, and the bio mom says, oh, my children's stepmom is a witch. Now they're both on the side of the children, and so they don't have to be besties, but they have to cooperatively co-parent. And I think what happens sometimes, and I bet you can relate to this is that we start blaming the ex and letting our spouse, our partner, off the hook. So the partner, your new partner, is probably responsible for some of the bad feelings and for what has right? And yet we don't want to see it. So we're blaming the crazy ex. And I'm on a mission for women to work together. Again, you don't have to have lunch together, but to just be cooperative
Yeah.
when it comes to co-parenting. Um, and to look at the reality of what is it your partner is doing or not doing that's
Mhm.
contributing to the contention.
Right. Right. Which in some cases might lead to another divorce. Or it might
Yeah,
really heal the relationship. But either
yeah,
way, there's some deepening of the truth and the balancing of the realities for the benefit of the kids.
absolutely. And
Mhm.
there is an upside to conflict. I mean, you can, when done well, you can talk about your needs, you can talk about your beliefs, and you can get closer to your partner. But without talking, it's near impossible. Because the answer is not avoiding conflict. That
Mhm.
only leads to resentments. But is to be able to talk openly and civilly with your partner about what's going on, and to make new rules and new protocols for your new household. So one of the things I say, we're not plug and play devices. I mean, we don't just like take a partner, plug her in, and just hit play. And the
Yeah.
same old rules, the same old protocols, that's not the way it works in our modern society. It might have worked in the 19th century, but we, we do need to have to sit down and talk, and the earlier the better, but it's never too late, and say, okay, how are we going to run this household?
Mhm.
What are our rules going to be? They may be different from the rules of the first family, but that's fine.
Well, that's exactly right. And then what if both parents are bringing children in and it's
Yeah,
an entirely blended family? So then you have this set of kids that have these bio parents and this set of kids who have these bio parents, and now they've got one of each of them, and they're trying to make make it work, and the kids don't relate to each other the way the bio siblings would, and so
yeah,
that could
yeah,
make it
yeah.
crazy.
It does make it crazy. And because you could have, several different sets of rules and protocols for each household, right? And it's not
Mhm.
easy. It's not easy, that's for sure. But we have to establish those rules and those protocols. Kristy, I've got to tell you,
Mhm.
I don't use the term blended.
Oh, really? What do you use?
No, I don't. And I have a reason for that, because I don't know what it means. Uh, does it mean that you take vacations together? Does it mean that the kids are besties? I don't know what it means. And it puts a lot of pressure on a family, on a second or a third family. It puts a lot of pressure on the kids. It puts a lot of pressure on the adults. Um, and some families never blend. I mean, so the goal or the goals should be
Mhm.
mutual respect
Mhm.
and peaceful coexistence.
I like that. That's a much better, much that just feels lighter. Like,
Yeah.
oh, like, you guys, we don't have, there's no pressure here for any, for you guys to forced to be a certain way or forced to do anything.
That's
Yeah.
exactly it. That's exactly it. It puts a lot of pressure to, if we have our own idea of what blending is, and if we're not that, but we don't even know what it is. It's like it's a goal that you can never get there because who's defined it?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's why I don't use the term blended. I call them step families, I call them second families, I call them third families, but I don't call them blended families.
I like that. I like that. Peaceful coexistence
Yeah.
and, based in communication. And
If Yeah, if we can get there, that's a success to me.
mhm.
So, And I often get questions, of course I get questions from my advice column, and people will say, when are my stepkids gonna love me? And I say, maybe never. I mean, that is another myth, is that we're going to be one big happy family and people are going to love each other. I'm going to love this, the adults are going to love their stepkids. The children are going to love each other and they're going to love their step parent. And, it may happen. It may never happen, but that doesn't mean that's the end of your relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And the term, even love, I mean, we're inadequate when it comes to that word. We can't, we love pizza. We love chocolate ice cream. I love my new range that I bought upstairs, but do we love our stepchildren the way that we love our own children? No, we do not. I mean, that's a big ask. So we have to let go of that fantasy, that expectation that our new partner is going to love our kids the way we do.
Mm-hmm.
It's not necessary. It's not necessary. But if we go for respect, that's what's good, and all the rest is gravy. So if late down the road, if you have a wonderful, loving relationship with one or more of your step kids, then that's wonderful. And if it doesn't happen, you can still have a wonderful relationship with your partner.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're going for.
And there's nothing wrong with liking people. I mean, how many times do we say, I love my husband, but I don't like him. And that's a big red flag right there. Or fill in the blank. And it could be wife, it could be brother, sister, whatever. It doesn't matter. And I'm just like, if you don't like them, there's something there that needs to kind of be healed.
Yeah. And it's, the other part of that is when we have our own biological kids, there are times we do not like them or we don't like their behaviors, right? But we do have this thing called unconditional love and acceptance that we're hardwired for. So, we get through the hard times. With our stepkids, it's hard we don't have that unconditional love and acceptance. So it's hard to always, feel like you want them around. And that's okay too. Someone just recently wrote me and they said, I just want to be alone with my partner and I feel so guilty about that. And I think, oh my God, that's what we all wish for. Who wants to have kids hang around for the rest of their lives, right? We want them to be launched. And so it is fine to want your partner all to yourself. And if you build a solid foundation, you'll have that. Mm-hmm. But if you don't, then when the kids leave, you might not have much left.
Right. There's no foundation.
Yeah. And, we're seeing a lot more what they call grave divorces, among seniors, the elderly, and they didn't have that good foundation.
That makes sense.
So that's what, as in a second family, we definitely need to shore that up with our partners and work on that relationship primarily.
Yes, that totally makes sense. And that's good for the kids too.
Yes. It is totally good for the kids. Yes.
So I'm sorry to cut you off, Susan, but can you tell our viewers how they can reach you? And I understand you also have some free offerings for them.
I do. Yeah. I do. Well, I can be reached. My website is cambioscoaching.com, and it's spelled out there. Cambios means changes in Spanish. People can contact me directly, but Susan at Cambios Coaching. I offer consultations to anyone. I love to talk to people. I guess you can't tell, but I offer free consultations. So you can book one of those on my website. I also have monthly free stepmom support groups, and they're public. You have to register for it, but they're public, meaning that it's not a curated group. Anybody can show up. You can come once, you can come multiple times. I've been doing that for a couple years. And it's totally free. It's the first Thursday of every month. So,
Oh, wonderful. And they can find all that information on your website?
yes. And if they can't find it, they need to email me. Please email me, and I will help out with that.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Susan. This has been a very enlightening. That you really address things that are not part of the common knowledge. I think it's a very important topic.
Thank you, Kristy.
Yes.
It has been great fun for me.
All right, everybody, stay tuned. Coming up next is our biohacking tip of the week.